The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window as Sarah hummed softly while preparing breakfast. William watched her from the doorway, a smile playing on his lips. After 15 years of marriage, she still took his breath away. Her auburn hair caught the light as she moved gracefully around their small kitchen, making coffee for two and packing lunch for their daughter Emma. "You're staring again," Sarah said without turning around, but William could hear the smile in her voice. "Can't help it," he replied, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "I'm married to the most beautiful woman in the world," Sarah laughed, the sound filling their modest home with warmth. "Flattery will get you everywhere, Mr. Thompson. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs." William worked long hours at the construction company, his calloused hands testament to years of hard labor. Sarah taught third grade at the local elementary school, where she was beloved by both students and parents. They lived paycheck to paycheck, but their small house was filled with love and laughter. 8-year-old Emma bounded down the stairs, her backpack bouncing behind her. She had Sarah's eyes and William's stubborn streak. "A combination that kept them on their toes, Mom?" "I can't find my science project," Emma announced dramatically, as if the world might end. "It's on the dining room table, sweetheart," Sarah replied patiently, "right where you left it yesterday." Emma rushed off to retrieve her carefully constructed volcano, and William couldn't help but marvel at how Sarah always seemed to have everything under control. She was the anchor of their family, the steady presence that kept them all grounded. After seeing Emma off to school, William and Sarah shared a quiet moment over coffee. These few minutes each morning had become sacred to them, a chance to connect before the day pulled them in different directions. Mrs. Patterson asked if I'd be interested in taking over as department head next year, Sarah mentioned casually. Stirring sugar into her cup, William's eyes lit up. "Sarah, that's incredible. You'd be perfect for it." She shrugged modestly, but he could see the excitement in her eyes. Sarah had always been passionate about education, often staying late to help struggling students or spending her own money on classroom supplies. The promotion would mean more responsibility, but also recognition for her dedication. It would mean longer hours, she warned. "We'll make it work," William assured her. "We always do." As they prepared to leave for work, Sarah suddenly stopped, her hand pressed against her stomach. Her face had gone pale and she looked confused. "Sarah, what's wrong?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I feel strange. Dizzy." William was beside her in an instant, his arm around her waist for support. "Maybe you should stay home today. Call in sick." "I can't," Sarah protested weakly. "We have parent conferences this week and the kids have their spelling test." "The spelling test can wait," William said firmly. "Your health comes first." But Sarah was already straightening up, color returning to her cheeks. "I'm fine," she insisted. "Probably just didn't eat enough breakfast." William studied her face carefully. Sarah had always been the strong one, rarely complaining about anything. If she said she was fine, he wanted to believe her. "Promise me you'll call if you feel sick again," he said. "I promise." They kissed goodbye, a routine gesture that had become as natural as breathing. William watched her drive away in their old Honda, a nagging worry settling in his chest that he couldn't quite shake. At the construction site, William tried to focus on the day's tasks. They were working on a new shopping center, and the deadline was tight. His crew looked to him for guidance, and he prided himself on being reliable. But throughout the morning he found his thoughts drifting to Sarah. During lunch break, he called the school. "Millfield Elementary, this is Janet." "Hi, Janet, it's William Thompson. Is my wife available?" "Oh, hi, William. Sarah's in a meeting with parents right now. Can I take a message?" "Just tell her I called to check on her." "Of course. Is everything all right?" William hesitated. "She wasn't feeling well this morning. Just wanted to make sure she's okay. I'll let her know you called. She seemed fine when I saw her earlier." The afternoon dragged on. William's unease grew stronger with each passing hour, though he couldn't explain why. He'd seen Sarah have occasional headaches or stomach troubles before, but something about this morning felt different. When his phone finally rang at 3:30, he answered before the first ring finished. "William?" Sarah's voice was shaky, frightened. "Sarah, what's wrong?" "I'm at the hospital," she said, and William's blood turned to ice. "I collapsed during the parent conference. They're running tests." William was already moving, shouting instructions to his foreman as he ran toward his truck. "Which hospital?" "I'm coming right now. Mercy General." "William, I'm scared." I'll be there in 10 minutes, he promised, his foot heavy on the accelerator. Everything's going to be okay. But as William raced through the city streets, running red lights and ignoring speed limits, he couldn't shake the feeling that nothing would ever be okay again. The worry that had been nagging at him all day had exploded into full-blown panic. He thought about their conversation that morning, about the department head position, about their plans for the future. Sarah had so much to live for, so much to give. She was only 32 years old, healthy and vibrant. Whatever this was, it had to be something minor, something easily fixable. The hospital parking lot was a blur as William abandoned his truck and ran toward the emergency entrance. His work boots echoed loudly on the polished floors as he approached the information desk. "Sarah Thompson," he said breathlessly. "My wife. She was brought in this afternoon." The nurse's sympathetic expression made his stomach drop. "Room 247. Take the elevator to the second floor." As the elevator climbed slowly upward, William closed his eyes and tried to prepare himself for whatever he was about to face. But nothing could have prepared him for the sight of Sarah lying in that hospital bed, looking small and fragile against the white sheets, with tubes and wires connecting her to machines that beeped and hummed with mechanical precision. The sterile smell of antiseptic hit William like a physical blow as he stepped into Sarah's hospital room. She looked so pale against the stark white pillows, her usually vibrant complexion now ashen and drawn. Various machines surrounded her bed, their steady beeping creating an ominous soundtrack that would haunt his dreams for years to come. "Sarah," he whispered, rushing to her side and taking her hand in his rough, calloused ones. Her eyes fluttered open, focusing on his face with visible effort. "You came so fast," she murmured, attempting a weak smile. "Of course I came fast. You scared me to death." William pressed her hand to his lips, noticing how cold her fingers felt. "What did the doctors say?" Before Sarah could answer, Dr. Martinez entered the room. William had never seen him before, but the man's serious expression and the way he carefully closed the door behind him sent alarm bells ringing in William's head. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Dr. Martinez, the neurologist assigned to your wife's case." He pulled up a chair, which William recognized as a bad sign. Doctors who delivered good news usually remained standing. "Neurologist?" William's voice cracked. "Why does she need a neurologist?" Dr. Martinez opened a thick folder and pulled out what looked like brain scans. "Your wife suffered what we call a seizure episode this afternoon. The paramedics found her unconscious in the school conference room." "A seizure?" William looked between the doctor and Sarah, his mind struggling to process the information. "But she's never had seizures before." "She's healthy. She runs 3 miles every morning. Sometimes these things develop suddenly," Dr. Martinez explained gently. "We've run several tests, including an MRI and CT scan of her brain." The way he paused made William's stomach clench with dread. "And we found something concerning. There's a mass in your wife's brain, Mr. Thompson. We need to do more tests to determine exactly what we're dealing with." The word mass echoed in William's head like a gunshot. He felt Sarah's hand tighten around his, and when he looked at her, he saw his own terror reflected in her eyes. "What kind of mass?" William managed to ask. "We won't know for certain until we perform a biopsy, but the location and appearance suggest it could be a tumor." The room seemed to tilt sideways. William gripped the bed rail to steady himself, his knuckles turning white. "A tumor? You mean cancer?" "Not all tumors are cancerous," Dr. Martinez said quickly. "Some are benign, meaning they don't spread and can often be removed safely. But we need to know exactly what we're dealing with before we can make any treatment decisions." Sarah spoke for the first time since the doctor entered. "How long have I had this?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "That's impossible to say. Some tumors grow very slowly over years while others develop rapidly. Have you experienced any symptoms lately? Headaches, vision problems, memory issues?" William watched Sarah think, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I've been getting headaches more often," she admitted. "But I thought it was just stress from work. And sometimes I felt dizzy, but I blamed it on not eating enough." The doctor nodded, making notes. "Those symptoms are consistent with what we're seeing. The good news is that we caught this relatively early. The tumor hasn't grown large enough to cause severe symptoms yet." "What happens now?" William asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. "We need to schedule a biopsy as soon as possible. We'll take a small sample of the mass and have it analyzed. Once we know what type of tumor we're dealing with, we can develop a treatment plan." How dangerous is the biopsy? Sarah asked. Dr. Martinez chose his words carefully. All brain surgery carries risks, but this is a routine procedure that we perform regularly. Our neurosurgical team is excellent. After the doctor left, William and Sarah sat in silence for a long time. The machines continued their rhythmic beeping, marking time in a world that had suddenly become uncertain and frightening. I need to call Emma's school, Sarah said suddenly. She'll wonder why I'm not there to pick her up. I already called my mom, William said. She's picking Emma up and taking her for ice cream. I told her you weren't feeling well and needed to rest. What are we going to tell her? William had been dreading this question. Emma adored her mother, followed her around like a devoted puppy. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that mommy might be seriously sick? We'll tell her the truth, he said finally. Age-appropriate truth. That you're not feeling well and the doctors are trying to figure out why. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'm supposed to help with her science fair project this weekend. She's been looking forward to it for weeks. Hey, William said, leaning closer and brushing a tear from her cheek. You're going to help her with that project. This is just a setback, okay? We're going to get through this. But even as he said the words, William felt doubt creeping into his heart. He'd always been the type of man who could fix things with his hands and his determination. Leaky faucets, broken windows, Emma's bicycle when the chain came off. But this was something he couldn't fix, couldn't control, couldn't make better with hard work and stubbornness. That evening, after Emma had been told that Mommy needed to stay in the hospital for a few days for tests, William sat beside Sarah's bed as visiting hours came to an end. She had dozed off, exhaustion finally overtaking the anxiety that had kept her awake most of the day. He studied her sleeping face, memorizing every detail, the small scar on her chin from when she fell off her bike as a child, the way her eyelashes cast shadows on her cheeks, the gentle rise and fall of her chest with each breath. I love you, he whispered into the darkened room. I love you so much it hurts. And I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Do you hear me? I'm not going to let this thing win. A nurse came in to check Sarah's vital signs, moving quietly in the dim light. You should go home and get some rest, she suggested kindly. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. William shook his head. I'm staying. Visiting hours ended an hour ago. I'm not leaving my wife alone. The nurse looked at him for a moment, then nodded. I'll bring you a pillow and blanket. But you'll be more comfortable in the chair that reclines. As William settled into the uncomfortable hospital chair for what would be the first of many sleepless nights, he made a silent promise to Sarah and to himself. Whatever this tumor was, whatever they were facing, he would move heaven and earth to save her. He would fight with everything he had, spend every penny they owned, call in every favor, and exhaust every option. The beeping of the machines became a metronome for his determination, marking time until the morning when they would begin the fight of their lives. The biopsy results came back on a Thursday morning that would forever be etched in William's memory. He had been pacing the hospital corridor for 3 hours, wearing a path in the linoleum while Sarah tried to rest. Every time a doctor or nurse walked by, his heart jumped, hoping for news. Dr. Martinez appeared at the end of the hallway, his expression unreadable. William's stomach clenched as he watched the doctor's measured walk toward Sarah's room. This was it. This was the moment that would define the rest of their lives. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, Dr. Martinez said as he entered the room. Sarah was awake now, propped up on pillows, her hand already reaching for William's. It's glioblastoma, the doctor said without preamble. Grade 4? I'm sorry. The words hit William like a sledgehammer to the chest. He'd spent hours researching brain tumors online, and glioblastoma was the one he'd prayed they wouldn't hear. It was the most aggressive type, the kind that gave patients months instead of years. How long? Sarah asked, her voice steadier than William felt. Without treatment, perhaps 3 to 6 months. With aggressive treatment, we might extend that to 12 to 18 months. Some patients have lived longer, but I want to be honest about what we're facing. William felt the room spinning around him. 12 to 18 months. Emma would still be in elementary school. They'd never see her graduate, never walk her down the aisle, never hold their grandchildren. What does aggressive treatment mean? William managed to ask. Surgery first to remove as much of the tumor as possible, then radiation therapy, followed by chemotherapy. It's a difficult process and there are no guarantees. Sarah squeezed William's hand so hard he thought she might break his fingers. What are the side effects? Dr. Martinez pulled out a pamphlet and began explaining the brutal reality of brain cancer treatment. Hair loss was the least of their worries. There could be memory problems, personality changes, weakness on one side of her body, speech difficulties. The treatment itself might steal away the essence of who Sarah was, even if it bought them more time. I need to think about this, Sarah said quietly. Of course. Take your time. But I should mention that time is a factor here. The sooner we begin treatment, the better chance we have of slowing the tumor's growth. After the doctor left, William and Sarah sat in stunned silence. The machines continued their steady beeping, but everything else had changed. The future they'd been building together had just been ripped away and replaced with uncertainty and fear. I want to go home, Sarah said suddenly. I want to see Emma. I want to sleep in my own bed. The doctor said you need to stay for observation until... I don't care what the doctor said. Sarah's voice was stronger now, more determined. If I only have months left, I'm not spending them in this hospital room staring at white walls. William understood. If their time was limited, every moment became precious. Every ordinary Tuesday evening, every breakfast conversation, every goodnight kiss with Emma took on monumental importance. He spoke with Dr. Martinez about releasing Sarah for a few days before starting treatment. The doctor was reluctant but agreed with the condition that she return immediately if she had another seizure. The ride home was surreal. William drove carefully as if sudden movements might shatter the fragile bubble they were living in. Sarah stared out the window at familiar streets, perhaps wondering how many times she'd see them again. Emma was waiting on the front porch when they pulled into the driveway. She'd been staying with William's mother, but he'd called to say Mommy was coming home for a visit. Emma ran to the car before Sarah could even get out, her arms wrapping around her mother's waist with fierce determination. I missed you so much. Mommy? Emma said, her voice muffled against Sarah's sweater. I missed you too, baby, Sarah replied, and William could hear the tears she was holding back. That evening, after Emma had gone to bed, William and Sarah sat on their back porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. They'd sat in this same spot thousands of times before, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt like they were saying goodbye to their old life. I keep thinking about all the things I won't get to do, Sarah said softly. I won't see Emma learn to drive. I won't help her pick out a prom dress. I won't meet her children. William's throat tightened. Don't talk like that. The doctor said 12 to 18 months, maybe longer. Medical advances happen every day. There might be new treatments. William. Sarah turned to face him, her eyes serious. I need you to promise me something. Anything. When I'm gone, I need you to move on. I need you to find someone who can love you and Emma the way you both deserve. Sarah, no. William's voice was sharp. I'm not having this conversation. You're not going anywhere. Promise me, she insisted. Promise me you won't spend the rest of your life grieving. Emma needs a father who's present, not lost in the past. William stood up abruptly, anger and denial warring in his chest. I'm not making any promises about losing you because I'm not going to lose you. Do you understand me? I'm going to fight this thing with everything I have. The next morning, William started making phone calls. He called every cancer specialist on the East Coast, begging for appointments. He researched experimental treatments and clinical trials. He contacted cancer centers in Houston, New York, and California. Most of the specialists gave him the same answer Dr. Martinez had. Glioblastoma was aggressive and deadly. Standard treatment was their best option. But then Dr. Sarah Chen at Johns Hopkins mentioned an experimental immunotherapy trial. The treatment was still in early phases, and there were only a limited number of spots available. The requirements were strict, and there was no guarantee Sarah would qualify. It's a long shot, Dr. Chen explained over the phone, and the side effects can be severe, but we've seen some promising results in a small number of patients. William didn't care about long shots or severe side effects. He cared about hope. What do we need to do? He asked. Bring all her medical records and scan results. We'll need to run our own tests and review her case. If she qualifies, we could potentially start treatment next week. William hung up the phone and found Sarah in Emma's room, helping their daughter with homework. They looked so normal, so everyday beautiful that his heart ached. Pack a bag, he said. We're going to Baltimore. Sarah looked up from Emma's math worksheet. William, what are you talking about? There's an experimental treatment at Johns Hopkins. It's a clinical trial, but it's a chance. It's hope. Sarah studied his face, seeing the determination there. What about Emma? What about your job? I already called my boss. He's giving me family leave, and Emma can come with us or stay with my mom. Whatever you want. For the first time since the diagnosis, William saw a spark of something in Sarah's eyes. Not quite hope, but something close to it. Something that looked like fight. Okay, she said simply. Let's go to Baltimore. That night, as William packed their suitcase, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they had found their miracle. The experimental treatment might work. Sarah might beat the odds. They might have years together instead of months. He was going to fight for his wife with everything he had, and he wasn't going to stop until he'd exhausted every option on earth. Johns Hopkins Medical Center loomed like a cathedral of hope and desperation as William helped Sarah out of their rental car. They had driven through the night from home, Emma sleeping peacefully in the back seat, unaware that her mother's life hung in the balance of the next few hours. The cancer wing was a world unto itself, filled with patients and families who all wore the same expression of cautious hope, mixed with barely contained terror. William recognized it because he saw it in every mirror he looked into these days. Dr. Sarah Chen was younger than William had expected, perhaps in her early 40s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She spent 3 hours reviewing Sarah's scans and medical history, asking detailed questions about symptoms and family history. The tumor's location is challenging, Dr. Chen explained, pointing to areas on the brain scan that meant nothing to William, but everything to their future. It's in the temporal lobe, which controls memory and language. Surgery to remove it completely would likely cause significant neurological damage. William felt his hope beginning to crack. So the trial isn't an option? Actually, that makes her a better candidate for immunotherapy, Dr. Chen continued. This experimental treatment doesn't require us to remove the entire tumor. Instead, we're teaching her immune system to recognize and attack the cancer cells. She explained the process in terms William could understand. They would inject modified immune cells directly into Sarah's bloodstream. These cells had been engineered to recognize the specific proteins found in glioblastoma tumors. If it worked, Sarah's own body would fight the cancer from within. What are the risks? Sarah asked. Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. The side effects can be severe. High fever, confusion, temporary paralysis. Some patients experience what we call cytokine release syndrome, where the immune response becomes so strong it can damage healthy organs. In rare cases, it can be fatal. William felt Sarah's hand slip into his. And if it works? We've had patients who showed significant tumor shrinkage. A few have been cancer-free for over 2 years now. But I want to be clear, this is still experimental. We don't have long-term data. The decision should have been difficult, but for Sarah it was immediate. When can we start? Dr. Chen smiled. You're decisive. I like that. We can begin preparation tomorrow if you're certain. That night, in their hotel room near the hospital, William watched Emma color in her activity book, while Sarah made phone calls to arrange extended leave from work. Everything about their conversation was surreal. Sarah spoke calmly about substitute teachers and lesson plans, as if she were going on vacation instead of fighting for her life. Daddy, why does Mommy need special medicine? Emma asked, looking up from her coloring. William knelt beside his daughter, choosing his words carefully. Remember how you had strep throat last year and you needed special medicine to get better? Emma nodded. Well, Mommy has something in her head that isn't supposed to be there and she needs different special medicine to make it go away. Will the medicine make her better? William glanced at Sarah, who had paused her phone call to listen. We hope so, sweetheart. The doctors are very smart and they're going to try their best. Emma seemed satisfied with this explanation and returned to her coloring. Children, William reflected, had an amazing ability to accept difficult situations with resilience that adults often lacked. The next morning, Sarah was admitted to the oncology ward. The preparation for the immunotherapy was almost as intensive as traditional chemotherapy. They had to suppress her immune system first, then rebuild it with the modified cells. William had arranged for Emma to spend time in the hospital's family center, where volunteers helped children with activities while their parents received treatment. She seemed to enjoy the attention and the art projects, but William could see the worry in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. The first week was brutal. Sarah developed a fever that spiked to 104 degrees, leaving her delirious and shaking. William sat beside her bed, cooling her forehead with damp cloths and whispering words of encouragement even when she couldn't respond. Please. He found himself praying to a God he wasn't sure he believed in. Please don't take her from us. She's so good, so kind. Emma needs her mother. I need my wife. Dr. Chen checked on Sarah multiple times each day, adjusting medications and monitoring her progress. The fever broke on day 5, leaving Sarah weak but coherent. How do you feel? William asked as she opened her eyes for the first time in days. Like I've been hit by a truck, Sarah whispered. But she managed a small smile. But I'm still here. The fever was a good sign, Dr. Chen explained later. It means the modified immune cells are active in her system. Now we wait and see if they're targeting the tumor. The waiting was agony. They would need to wait 3 weeks before doing new scans to see if the treatment was working. 3 weeks of not knowing whether they were winning or losing the fight. William threw himself into caring for Sarah and entertaining Emma. He read medical journals late into the night, researching everything he could find about immunotherapy success rates. He contacted other families who had been through similar treatments, desperate for encouragement and practical advice. One conversation particularly stuck with him. A man named David, whose wife had participated in the same trial 2 years earlier. The hardest part isn't the treatment, David told him over the phone. It's the uncertainty. You wake up every morning not knowing if this is the day that changes everything for better or worse. How did you cope? 1 day at a time? Sometimes 1 hour at a time. And I focused on what I could control. I couldn't control the cancer, but I could control being present for my wife and kids. Sarah's strength amazed William. Even on her worst days, when the treatment left her exhausted and nauseous, she insisted on helping Emma with homework over video calls. She recorded bedtime stories for Emma to listen to when she couldn't be there in person. I want her to remember my voice, Sarah explained when William found her recording on her phone at 2 in the morning. You're going to be around to tell her stories in person for many years, William insisted. I hope so, Sarah replied, but I want to be prepared. The night before the scan that would determine if the treatment was working, William couldn't sleep. He stood by the hospital window, looking out at the city lights and thinking about everything that had led them to this moment. 3 months ago, their biggest worry had been whether Emma would pass her spelling test. Now they were fighting for Sarah's life with experimental medicine in a city far from home. Sarah stirred in her bed, and William went to her side. Can't sleep either? She asked softly. Too nervous. Whatever happens tomorrow, Sarah said, taking his hand. I want you to know that these have been the best months of my life. William stared at her in disbelief. Sarah, you've been battling cancer. How can you say that? Because I've seen how much you love me, she replied. I've watched you fight for me every single day. I've seen Emma being brave because she's learning from your example. I've never felt more loved or more grateful to be alive than I do right now. William leaned down and kissed her forehead. Tomorrow's going to be good news, he said with more confidence than he felt. I can feel it. But as the night wore on, William's anxiety grew. Tomorrow they would learn whether the experimental treatment was their miracle or whether they needed to prepare for the fight of their lives to continue. The MRI machine hummed and clicked around Sarah like a mechanical dragon, each sound echoing William's heartbeat as he waited in the corridor outside. 3 weeks had passed since the immunotherapy treatment began, and today would determine whether their leap of faith had been worth taking. Emma sat beside him in the waiting area, swinging her legs from the too-tall chair and working on a puzzle book. She had become remarkably adaptable to hospital life, making friends with nurses and knowing which vending machine had the best snacks. It broke William's heart that his 8-year-old daughter had become so comfortable in a place where children should never have to spend time. Daddy, how long until we know if Mommy's medicine worked? Emma asked without looking up from her crossword puzzle. The doctor said about 2 hours after the scan, William replied, checking his watch for the 100th time that morning. And if it worked, can we go home? William hesitated. Even if the treatment was successful, they would need to stay for monitoring and potentially additional treatments. We'll see, sweetheart. 1 step at a time. The scan took 45 minutes that felt like 45 hours. When Sarah finally emerged from the radiology department, she looked exhausted but tried to smile for Emma's sake. How was it, Mommy? Emma asked, wrapping her arms around Sarah's waist. Loud and boring, Sarah replied. But not scary. Dr. Chen had warned them that reading the results would take time. A team of radiologists and oncologists would compare the new scans to the previous ones, measuring any changes in the tumor size and density. Meanwhile, they waited in Sarah's room, playing card games and trying to pretend this was just another ordinary day. William found himself memorizing details he'd never noticed before. The way Sarah unconsciously tucked her hair behind her left ear when she was concentrating, how she always let Emma win at Go Fish, but made her work for victories at more challenging games. The soft humming sound she made when she was content. At 2:30, Dr. Chen knocked on the door. William's stomach clenched as he watched her enter, trying to read her expression for clues. She was carrying a folder of scan results and wore a carefully neutral expression that revealed nothing. "Emma, sweetie," Sarah said gently, "why don't you go get us some ice cream from the cafeteria? Daddy will give you money." Emma looked between her parents, sensing the importance of the moment. "Can I get chocolate chip?" "You can get whatever flavor you want," William said, handing her a $10 bill. "Take your time." After Emma left, Dr. Chen sat down and opened the folder. William held his breath. "The results are mixed," she began, and William felt his heart sink. "The good news is that the tumor hasn't grown. In fact, it appears to have shrunk by approximately 15%. William felt a surge of hope. "That's good news, right?" "It's encouraging," Dr. Chen agreed. "But there's also some concerning activity in the surrounding brain tissue. The immunotherapy appears to be causing inflammation in areas adjacent to the tumor." Sarah leaned forward. "What does that mean?" "It could mean several things. The inflammation might be a side effect of the treatment that will resolve on its own, or it could indicate that the cancer is trying to spread, and your immune system is fighting it in multiple locations." William felt like he was on an emotional roller coaster. "So we don't know if it's working or not?" "We know it's doing something," Dr. Chen said carefully. "The question is whether what it's doing is ultimately beneficial. I'd like to continue the treatment for another month and then reassess." Another month, another 4 weeks of uncertainty, of watching Sarah battle side effects, of Emma living in limbo between home and hospital. "What are our other options?" Sarah asked. "We could stop the immunotherapy and move to traditional chemotherapy and radiation. The success rates aren't as promising for your specific case, but the side effects are more predictable." Sarah looked at William, and he could see her weighing the options. The experimental treatment offered the possibility of a better outcome, but also greater uncertainty and risk. "I want to continue," Sarah said finally. "If there's a chance this could work, I want to take it." Dr. Chen nodded. "I think that's reasonable, but I want to be clear about what we're watching for. If the inflammation increases or if you develop any neurological symptoms, we'll need to stop the treatment immediately." That evening, after Emma had fallen asleep in the reclining chair beside Sarah's bed, William and Sarah talked quietly about the day's news. 15% shrinkage, Sarah repeated. "That's something, right?" "It's definitely something," William agreed. "But I was hoping for more definitive results." "Nothing about this has been definitive," Sarah pointed out. "From the moment they found the tumor, everything has been uncertain. At least now we know we're fighting back." William admired her strength, but he could see the toll the uncertainty was taking on her. She had lost 20 pounds since the treatment began, and the constant medications had given her skin a pale, translucent quality. Yet her spirit remained unbroken. "I've been thinking about what we'll do when this is over," Sarah said softly. "When you're better, you mean?" "When this is over," she repeated firmly. "Either way, I want Emma to remember this time as more than just Mommy being sick. I want her to remember that we faced something scary together and we didn't give up." William nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "She already knows that. She sees how brave you are every day." "I see how brave you are too," Sarah replied. "You've put your whole life on hold to take care of us." "This is my life," William said. "You and Emma. Everything else is just details." The next morning brought unexpected visitors. William's mother arrived with Sarah's sister Jennifer, who had flown in from California. They brought care packages from home, photos from Emma's recent school performance, and most importantly, a sense of connection to their real life beyond the hospital walls. "The whole town is praying for you," William's mother told Sarah. "Mrs. Patterson at the school organized a prayer chain. Even people who don't usually go to church are participating." Sarah wiped away tears. "I miss home so much." "Home misses you too," Jennifer said. But you focus on getting better. Everything else will wait. Having family there helped with Emma, who had been growing increasingly restless with the hospital routine. She brightened considerably when her grandmother suggested they explore the nearby science museum while Sarah rested. That afternoon, while Emma was out with her grandmother and aunt, William sat beside Sarah's bed and made a decision he'd been avoiding. "I want to talk to Dr. Chen about what happens if the treatment doesn't work," he said quietly. Sarah looked at him with understanding. "I've been thinking the same thing. We need to have a plan. For Emma's sake, if nothing else." Sarah nodded. "I want to go home if we get to that point. I want to be in our own house, in our own bed." "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," William said. "But yes, if that's what you want, that's what we'll do." They sat in comfortable silence, both lost in their thoughts. Outside the window, Baltimore continued its daily rhythm. People going about their lives unaware that in room 247, a family was fighting the battle of their lives. That night, as William watched Sarah sleep, he whispered the same prayer he'd been saying for weeks. "Please, whatever it takes to save her. I'll do whatever it takes." The second month of treatment brought complications that no one had anticipated. Sarah developed severe headaches that left her bedridden for days at a time. Her speech became slurred, and sometimes she struggled to find simple words. Most terrifying of all, she began having moments where she didn't recognize William or Emma. "The inflammation is affecting her cognitive function," Dr. Chen explained, during what had become daily consultations. "This could be temporary, a side effect of her immune system working overtime. But we need to consider the possibility that the treatment is causing more harm than good." William stood at the window of the consultation room, watching snow fall on Baltimore. It was December now, nearly 4 months since Sarah's first seizure. Christmas was 3 weeks away, and he wondered if they would spend it in this hospital room. "What are our options?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. "We can stop the immunotherapy and see if the cognitive symptoms improve. If they do, we could try a modified version of the treatment or move to traditional chemotherapy. And if we stop the treatment entirely?" Dr. Chen's pause was answer enough. The tumor showed signs of responding to the immunotherapy. Without treatment, it will likely resume growing. William felt trapped between two impossible choices: continue treatment that might be damaging Sarah's brain, or stop treatment and watch the cancer take her. How long do we have to decide? Not long. If her cognitive function continues to decline, we'll need to stop the treatment immediately. That evening, William sat beside Sarah's bed, holding her hand as she drifted in and out of sleep. During her lucid moments, she was still herself. But the confused episodes were becoming more frequent and more frightening. "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy remember my name sometimes?" Emma asked that night as William tucked her into the fold-out bed they'd set up in Sarah's room. William struggled for an explanation that wouldn't terrify his daughter. "The medicine Mommy is taking is very strong, and sometimes it makes her brain confused. But she always loves you even when she's confused." "Will she get better?" "We hope so, sweetheart. The doctors are working very hard to help her." Emma nodded solemnly, then surprised him by saying, "I think we should pray for her." William wasn't particularly religious, but he knelt beside Emma's bed and listened as his 8-year-old daughter offered a prayer of startling maturity and faith. "Dear God, please help the doctors make Mommy better. And please don't let her be scared when she's confused. Help Daddy not be so sad all the time. And please let us go home for Christmas." "Amen. Amen," William whispered, his voice thick with emotion. 2 days later, Sarah had an episode that lasted 6 hours. She didn't recognize anyone and became agitated when nurses tried to check her vital signs. William watched helplessly as the woman he loved became a stranger, trapped in confusion and fear. When she finally emerged from the episode exhausted and disoriented, Sarah looked at William with heartbreaking clarity. "It's getting worse, isn't it?" she asked. William couldn't lie to her. "Yes, I want to stop the treatment." William felt his heart break. "Sarah, if we continue, I might lose myself completely before the cancer kills me," Sarah interrupted. "I'd rather have a few months of being me than a year of being someone else." Dr. Chen wasn't surprised by their decision. "I think you're making the right choice," she said gently. "We can manage her symptoms and focus on quality of life. There are still things we can do to slow the tumor's growth." The process of discontinuing the immunotherapy took several days. Sarah's cognitive symptoms began improving almost immediately, Though William knew this was likely temporary, the cancer would resume growing soon. "I want to go home," Sarah said on a Thursday morning that felt surprisingly normal. She was alert, coherent, and more like herself than she'd been in weeks. "Are you sure?" "The doctors here know your case. I want Emma to have a normal Christmas," Sarah said firmly. "I want to sleep in our own bed and wake up in our own house. I want to make pancakes in our kitchen and watch Christmas movies on our couch." William understood. If their time was limited, it should be spent living, not just surviving. Dr. Chen was reluctant to discharge Sarah but agreed to transfer her care to the oncology team at their local hospital. "Promise me you'll come back immediately if she has another seizure or if her symptoms worsen," she said. "I promise." The drive home felt like traveling to another planet. Emma chattered excitedly about decorating their Christmas tree and baking cookies with Mommy. Sarah sat quietly, watching familiar landscapes pass by the window, perhaps wondering how many times she'd see them again. Their house felt both exactly the same and completely different. The Christmas decorations were still in boxes in the basement, waiting for a family that had been too busy fighting cancer to think about holidays. "Can we decorate tonight?" Emma asked. Sarah smiled. "Absolutely. But first I want to take a shower in my own bathroom and sleep in my own bed for about 12 hours. That evening, William found himself in the basement, pulling out boxes of Christmas decorations they'd accumulated over 15 years of marriage. Each ornament told a story. Emma's handprint in clay from when she was 3, the angel Sarah had bought on their honeymoon. The ridiculous singing reindeer that played jingle bells until everyone wanted to throw it away, but somehow never did. When he carried the boxes upstairs, he found Sarah and Emma on the living room floor, sorting through old photo albums. "Look, Daddy," Emma said, holding up a picture from the previous Christmas. "Remember when Mommy made that huge gingerbread house and it collapsed?" William remembered. Sarah had spent hours on that gingerbread house, determined to make it perfect. When it fell apart, she'd laughed so hard she cried, and they'd all eaten the pieces for dessert. "I want to try again this year," Sarah said, studying the photo, "but maybe with better architecture." They spent the evening decorating their tree, with Sarah directing from the couch when she got tired. Emma hung ornaments with the serious concentration of someone handling precious artifacts. William strung lights and tried to pretend this was just another Christmas. But as the evening wore on, he noticed signs that the reprieve was temporary. Sarah's energy flagged quickly, and she had moments where she lost track of conversations. The cognitive symptoms were returning. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, William and Sarah lay in their own bed for the first time in months. The familiar surroundings were comforting, but also highlighted how much had changed. "William," Sarah said quietly in the darkness, "I need you to promise me something. Anything. When it gets bad again, when I start losing myself, I want you to remember who I was. I want you to tell Emma stories about who her mother was when she was herself." William turned to face her, even though he couldn't see her clearly in the dark. "You're going to be around to tell her those stories yourself. Promise me," Sarah insisted. William was quiet for a long moment, fighting against accepting what Sarah had already accepted. Finally, he whispered, "I promise." The next morning, Sarah woke up confused again. It took her several minutes to recognize where she was, and when she saw William, she asked him why he was in her bedroom. But by afternoon, she was lucid again, helping Emma make Christmas cookies and humming carols while she worked. It was as if she was taking turns being sick and being herself, and William treasured every moment when she was truly present. As Christmas approached, William found himself living in a strange state of suspended time. Each good day felt like a gift, each bad day like a warning of what was coming, but he was determined to give Emma the Christmas her mother wanted her to have, and to create memories that would last long after Sarah was gone. The local oncologist, Dr. Patel, was honest about what they could expect. "The cognitive symptoms will likely worsen and become more frequent. We can manage her pain and keep her comfortable, but the tumor is growing again." "How long?" William asked. "It's impossible to say precisely. Perhaps weeks, maybe a few months." William nodded, having learned to live with uncertainty. "What can we do to make her comfortable?" "Keep her surrounded by love," Dr. Patel said simply. "Make sure she's not in pain, and prepare your daughter for what's coming." That evening, as William watched Sarah read a bedtime story to Emma, he said a prayer of gratitude for this moment, this day, this ordinary Tuesday night that felt like the most precious gift he'd ever received. "Please," he whispered to whatever force might be listening, "please give us Christmas. Give us just a little more time."